We'll kick things off with our top goal scorer for the Championship this coming season. Would you like some stats, Justin?
You know what? Let's give the people what they want.
Absolutely. That's what they came here for, stats, not predictions, stats. Last season was the first season in Championship history where nobody managed to get 20 goals or more. Joel Pirro was the top scorer with 19, which is the lowest tally ever. Pirro was also the first top goal scorer in 3 years to be promoted. The two of them before him didn't, them being, of course, Sammy Szmodics at Blackburn, Chuba Akpom at Middlesbrough. The previous four before them were playing for teams that did get promoted. Szmodics is the only top goal scorer in the last 8 seasons to play for a team who didn't finish in the top 6. How about that? Joel Pirro was 12-1 to be top goal scorer last season. Before then, you had Szmodics, who was 150-1, and Akpom, who was 66-1, Justin. Big prices right there.
The Sammy Szmodics one is incredible, considering you'd have probably got shorter odds on Blackburn getting promoted.
Oh, yeah. You genuinely would have. You absolutely genuinely would have. So that goes to show how big the Szmodics shout was. Only 5 of the last 13 top goal scorers were playing for the team who scored the most goals. And finally, only 3 players have been top goal scorer more than once. Those are Alexander Mitrovic, Teemu Pukki, and who, Justin Peach?
And yeah, you always... if I start back to these previews, you always ask me questions, and I always like an absolute thicko because I never remember. But I will throw out there Billy Sharp.
No, it wasn't Billy Sharp. I'm not sure Billy Sharp ever was top goal scorer.
No, I don't think he was.
Actually, despite him scoring a lot of goals in the process. No, I actually ask the same question every year. The same answer is always Sylvani Banks-Blake. So remember it for 12 months' time. You set a reminder on your phone to remember that.
I absolutely will not.
But look, it's a tricky one this year because we've got some big-name strikers coming down from the Premier League. We've also got a lot of very expensive new strikers coming to the Championship from abroad who we don't know how they're going to get on, quite frankly. But Justin, kick us off. Who is your pick to be top goal scorer this season in the Championship?
I've gone with the Southampton striker, and not Ross Stewart, sadly. I've gone with Cameron Archer. He's a natural finisher, isn't he? But wickedly, you could have actually picked one of 3 or 4 players at Southampton: Adam Armstrong, Ben Brereton, Diaz, Ross Stewart, have all proven to be capable goal scorers at his level. But Archer excites me the most for the reason that I think he's the most rounded number 9 in the squad and maybe in the division that we've got, a good history of at Championship level. Ross Stewart, of course, I've picked in the past, notably when he was injured, not due to return until October for Sunderland. I still picked him for Golden Boot. Yeah, we'll skirt over that very quickly. But with if he didn't have his injury problems, I'd pick him now, but he does. But Cameron Archer, go back to him. I feel like he made the wrong decision going to Sheffield United in the Premier League in 2023. I think he needed more than the 42 appearances he made at Championship level to develop. But of those 42 appearances he made, he scored 18 goals. That's, of course, on loan at Preston and Middlesbrough. Give him a pre-season under a young, exciting coach as first choice striker, then who knows what he can do. I'm really, really excited about him this summer.
Yeah, I believe Cameron Archer is the bookies' favourite to be top goal scorer this season. So, yeah, a very safe pick by a man who's infamously overcautious. But, yeah, if Cameron Archer does play almost every game, you would expect him to score a lot of goals this season. My main question mark with him is, and this is why I avoided him, is he going to play almost every game? Because Southampton have so many strikers. You've got him, Adam Armstrong, Ross Stewart, Ben Brereton Diaz, and even new signing Damien Downs, who wasn't cheap. So if he goes a few games without a goal, he could easily be dropped, Justin, hence why I skirted away from Archer personally.
It's something that entered my realm of thinking, because if I was to deploy Southampton, I would play a 4-3-3 with Ben Brereton Diaz, Cameron Archer and Adam Armstrong, mainly because Brereton Diaz and Adam Armstrong have got good history of playing on the flanks. Adam Armstrong scored a hell of a lot of goals under Russell Martin coming off the right. Ben Brereton Diaz, as we know, coming off the left, has scored a hell of a lot of goals for Blackburn. And Archer through that middle will be wonderful. But like you said, if he's goes 2 or 3 games without a goal, Damien Downs comes in, Ross Stewart comes in. Likewise, Damien Downs might be the starter, if you like. There are question marks there, but as I say, I think Cameron Archer is probably the most well equipped to play centrally in that Southampton team right now. Damien Downs has got to get up to speed with different country, coming over into a new division, new manager, etc. And Ross Stewart, his injury record's just doesn't convince you that he's going to start more than 10, 15 games, does it? So as I say, I think Archer there. But you raise a really good point, and that's why I'm, based on that, probably surprised to see him favourite.
Yeah. But if he does play every week, he's going to score a lot of goals, isn't he? Yeah, that's the thing we can say. But it's a bit of food for thought for anyone who is considering backing Archer for the new season. Let's go to my pick for top goal scorer. I'll start off, Justin, by saying there are 4 things I look for when I pick my top goal scorer. Number 1 is what we've been saying already. They need to be playing every week for me. So I've avoided Southampton or Sheffield United strikers because they've got multiple options. I also don't want someone who's got a sketchy history with injuries. 2, I would prefer if they took penalties, because that definitely helps. 3, they need a good supply. Going to use the dreaded term that everyone hates now, but the last 4 top goal scorers each had the highest XG in the whole division, hence why supply is so important. And finally, I want someone who overperformed their XG last season because it shows they're a good finisher. And logically, if you still overperform your XG but have a higher XG, you'll score a lot of goals. Does that make sense, Justin?
There's good logic there. No vibes, just pure numbers. Nerd.
Thank you.
Carry on.
That's what I am. Big old nerd. But with all that criteria in mind, there was one player in particular who really stood out to me. And as I said a bit earlier on, has got me very excited because when I looked last week, Justin, he was 50-1 to be Championship top goal scorer next season. It's Millwall's Mihailo Ivanovic. Now, for those who don't know him, he joined Millwall last summer for £2.5 million. And he struggled initially. Neil Harris, who was manager in the first half of the season, didn't seem to fancy him. He started just twice under him before he left in December. But then when Alex Neil came in, Ivanovic really started to flourish. He put his faith in him and he suddenly caught fire. Ivanovic ended the season with 10 goals in his last 17 starts. The partnership he struck up with Josh Coburn really thrived. So it's great news that he's been signed permanently. But the way I look at it is this. If Alex Neil was in charge for the whole of last season, how many would Ivanovic have scored? You know, probably a hell of a lot more than what he did do. And he's had a betting in season now. This can be him at full throttle. No current Championship striker overperformed the XG more than him last season, which shows he's an excellent finisher and he'll get plenty of chances in the team. Many are expecting to go well this campaign, especially with the supply from the likes of Alfie Doherty. So I'm really hot on this pick, Millwall's Mihailo Ivanovic, to be top goal scorer this season in the Championship.
It's a smart pick. I will double down on the fact that it comes across you've worked this out more like an accountant as opposed to a bit of logic, maybe.
Where's the lack of logic? Did you not watch him last season, Justin? He was firing on all cylinders.
I love him. I think he's a great prospect of a striker. I like him a lot. He's supremely gifted with his finishing. I think the only reason why I say logic is because there's certain things that hold me back. One of them is supply. Is there enough of it at Millwall for him to score 20 plus? Millwall haven't scored 60 goals in a Championship season since 2010, 2011. Just to highlight the regularity in which they do score a lot of goals. Interestingly as well, with Alex Neil, again, I've rated him very highly as a coach, as listeners will know, but he hasn't coached a player to score 20 goals in his career. It's worth noting that Ross Stewart and Cameron Jerome both scored 20 plus in the seasons that he took over Sunderland and Norwich, but he took over halfway through, so they're already well into their goals. I think the most obvious thing to skirt over is probably Alfie Doherty. I think he's going to be a big source of assists, but I do worry that Ivanovic would need more creativity around him to score 20, 25 goals in the Championship next season.
Well, as I say, if Alex Neil was there for the entire season, Justin, who knows? Maybe he would have scored 20 goals or so, because as I say, he scored 10 goals in his last 17 starts, and he didn't start many games before that. So, yeah, as I say, he found plenty of opportunities last season, and now that they have strengthened in terms of chance creation with the likes of Alfie Doherty coming in, I think he's going to surprise a fair few people, particularly at the price that I mentioned just a second ago. Blimey me. Well, each year, Justin, as well as picking a top goal scorer, we like to do a dark horse for top goal scorer as well. Someone who's more of a long shot to win the Golden Boot. As I said a few minutes ago, you had Sami Spodek, who was 150-1 a couple of seasons ago. Chuba Akpom, who was 66-1. So who do we fancy as a long shot for this, Peachy?
I've gone with Luca Kjermgaard at Watford. Of course, he's coming on loan from Udinese, so he's a new signing for the Hornets this summer. The reason why it's an outside pick is because there are multiple factors filling in here. He's adapting to a new club, style, country and league. But also, this would be his first full season at this standard. The Championship, one he's currently playing in now, is definitely going to be ahead of the Danish second tier, which he was playing in. But he did score a decent amount, 13.48. So he's got a history of scoring goals. Watford have an exciting squad this summer as well, which I think is going to play into his hands because there's him, Vivaldi Semedo, and Mamadou Doumbia, who are competing for the striking slots. But the supply there is really putting me in. Quadro Bar, Georgi Shakvatadze, Aaron Kunda, and more. It's a really nice set of circumstances at Watford. And of course, he's a big lad, which he moves very well for. I've seen clips of him in pre-season, which I've been surprised at. It's a cliche how good and smooth he moves for someone who's a monstrous size.
Yeah. For anyone who is a long-time listener, they'll know that Justin is a big fan of his big old shithousers, and Kieran Gard at 6'6", I believe he is definitely in that category. But yeah, Justin mentioned there that he cost £4.5 million for Udinese, but he's gone straight on loan to Watford. Another one who fits into the category of new striker coming in from abroad. He's cost a lot of money, but we don't know much about, so we don't know how they're going to get on. My main concern is, as you say, Justin, it's the Danish second tier. Even if it's the first tier, I've had question marks, but him scoring goals in the Danish second tier just makes me even more concerned about whether he'll be able to adapt to this level. But I might be completely wrong. Maybe he will score a hat load. I just simply don't know.
I think you've got to start somewhere, but I think that all goal scorers are goal scorers, aren't they? If you have an active record, I think Victor Gyökeres is a very good example in that. He scored goals at youth level in Sweden, didn't quite materialise at Brighton, scored goals in the Championship with Coventry, scored goals in Portugal with Lisbon and in the Champions League, and his records just kept going and going and going because he's a goal scorer. And I think, not to say that Luka Kjermgaard's going to have the same trajectory, but the leagues he's played in so far, he's been scoring goals. He does have experience in the Danish Premier League, if you like, where he scored 4 in 14, so not as prolific, but still scoring goals. And that's a healthy record for me so far.
I would just prefer someone who's been playing at a higher level than what he's been playing at personally. But as I say, he may prove us completely wrong. Who knows? As for my dark horse top goal scorer, this was really a case of me scrolling through the odds simply out of interest. And then I saw at 100 to 1 to be top goal scorer, Carlton Morris of Derby County. And I just thought, 100 to 1, how can I say no to that? A guy who 3 seasons ago scored 20 goals in the Championship, only one fewer than Victor Gyökeres, by the way, and then scored 11 goals in the Premier League the following season. I can't really understand how he's 100 to 1. I guess the simple explanation is he struggled at Luton last season, but everyone struggled at Luton last season. Now he's at a club on the up in Derby with a manager in John Eustace who has a proven record of getting the best out of players. He'll be on penalties as well. Yes, I will admit slightly concerned about the quality of service he'll be getting at Derby because creativity is my big concern there. But keep in mind, Jerry Yates got 10 last season. So under John Eustace, Carlton Morris, I would not be surprised at all for him to be right up there for the Golden Boot this coming season.
Yeah, I think picking this, when I saw his name in the running order, I was like, how can you pick someone who's got a good history of scoring goals at Championship level as a dark horse? You mentioned the odds 100 to 1 is ridiculous.
Yeah. It
really, really is. But I know there'll be people sort of banging the drum, he only scored 8 last season for Luton. But if you go back to the episode that we recorded when we picked our top signings, I picked out Carlton Morris. I ran through some statistics in that he was having less shots. He was getting into less shooting positions because the squad or the team just wasn't getting their forwards into good areas. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, all the chances were falling to Elijah Adebayo, who was spurning them over the bar, as we know. May have been a different story if Carlton Morris, if they were falling to Carlton Morris, but I think as a dark horse is a great shout. I think what this does is it presents a nice shift from what we had last summer to what we've got now. We've got an abundance of number 9s to pick from. We didn't have that last year because I think you picked Liam Cullen, if I remember rightly, which in itself was a good. Yeah, he did very well. He scored a lot of goals, but the standard of striker that we've got at our disposal this season is certainly greater than what we had last summer.
Yeah, you've got a lot of hitmen to choose from, haven't you? And a lot of them are clearly not that fancied, even though they probably shouldn't be. So yeah, 2 very exciting picks there from me. That's what I'll say. Let's go to the next one, Justin. It's player of the season. Do you want some more stats, Justin?
Yeah, I can't wait to get them wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I promise I won't ask you too many questions. Unsurprisingly, every player of the season winner in Championship history has played for a side who finished in the top 6. So you've got to consider that a minimum requirement for whoever's winning this. However, and this is an interesting stat, Justin, the 3 most recent EFL player of the season winners were playing for sides who didn't get promoted. Gustavo Hamer, Crescencio Somerville and Chuba Akpom. Although, got to be pointed out, 6 of the previous 7 before them did get promoted. So, yeah, food for thought there. Only one winner has been a defender. Who was it, Justin?
A defender? Nora Nosworthy.
Unfortunately, it's not old Nyron, but he's a legend in his own right. I ask you this question every year. I'm surprised you didn't get it. Phil Jagielka at Sheffield United. And the only other stat I've got here is only 3 of the previous 7 winners also won top goal scorer. So not necessarily conducive with that. Justin, kick us off. Who is your pick for player of the season in the Championship?
I've gone with Jack Clarke of Ipswich Town. Squad player last season in the Premier League. He only started 12. It's sort of disappointing considering how good he was the season before for Sunderland. And I'll be blunt here, and I'm not telling Kieran McKenna how to do his job, but I think it's in his best interest next season if Kieran McKenna starts Jack Clarke. Now, can you just imagine Jack Clarke on the left, Amari Hutchinson on the through the middle, and Jaden Philogene on the right? That would be a sickening trio if that's how you line up. But when you're talking about ball carrying abilities, but also decision making in the final third, I don't think there's anyone that's been consistent across 2 years than Jack Clarke. Yeah, quite funnily, you can almost count 3 years because he scored and assisted in his only 2 games last season for Sunderland before he moved to Ipswich. So the ball was rolling already, but 15 goals from the left-hand side in the 23-24 season. That Sunderland team finished 16th, by the way, so scoring that many goals from a wide area in a grossly underperforming team with some mismanagement, with a managerial appointments, very good. It was 9 the season before that, which was his first full season in the Championship, can you say? Because there was fleeting appearances from Leeds as a youngster and then loan spells here and there, which again, good return from a player in a team that's just come from League One in the 22-23 season. He delivers at this level. And I think if Ipswich do want to compete for the automatic, getting the ball to Jack Clarke as often as possible will work wonders. Christ, Jack Clarke, advanced left, Leif Davis left wing back. That's disgusting.
Yeah, revolting, really, isn't it? But yeah, Jack Clarke's a very good shout, Justin. He's a very good player. I've also been looking towards Suffolk with my pick as well, because I've actually gone with 2 names for this, because plain and simply, if Amari Hutchinson stays at Ipswich, I think it's nailed on to be him. Talent-wise, he would probably be the best player in the division, but whether he's going to stay is looking 50-50 right now. So my other pick for player of the season is Jaden Philogene, someone who was unbelievable. Last time he was in the Championship, he got 12 goals and 8 assists for Hull and was by far the standout player for a team which finished 7th. And what followed was a big move to Aston Villa, where he made a fair few appearances off the bench, but it's not exactly a slight against him being unable to break into the starting 11 there, is it? And then Ipswich signed him in January for 20 million. Didn't have the desired impact, but he was also injured for a fair bit of it. However, in terms of pure ability, Jaden Philogene is sensational. Should be in the Premier League, really, based off what we saw of him last time at this level. And if Kieran McKenna can continue to make him an even better player, then he's going to be absolutely lethal this coming season. So if Mari Hutchinson does leave, Philogene is going to flourish. I would prefer him to play on the left, but it looks as if your pick is going to be playing there, Justin, based off what pre-season has been seeing. Either way, not a bad couple of options to have, are they?
It's incredible. This is no disrespect to the players that Kieran McKenna once had, but what Kieran McKenna delivered with the likes of Nathan Broadhead, Marcus Harness, I'm trying to think of Wes Burns, just incredible. Now he's got Jaden Philogene, Jack Clarke, and potentially Mara Hutchinson if he stays. Sorry, I'm just exhaling in disbelief. I'm really excited for Ipswich fans. I know you've just come down from the Premier League, but we've had time and time again a lot of fans sort of discuss the fact that winning's a nice feeling in the Championship, and what you've got here is just an abundance of players who you're just going to enjoy watching. Because Jaden Philogene is exciting. He scored that. He scored that Rabona against Rotherham, didn't he?
Yes.
I say in inverted commas, which was an own goal or whatever.
Yeah, it took a slight deflection into it for anyone who's wondering why Justin's being cautious with that.
Yeah. But it's the sort of ingenuity you're going to get used to seeing, especially once he's flying, because I don't think it's fair. Well, it's certainly fair to say Ipswich fans haven't seen the best of Jack Clark or Jaden Philligy, and you've probably seen a bit more of Amari Hutchinson. But you've certainly not seen the best out of these two wide players who at championship level are amongst the best. They really are. So I'm excited, and that's all I've got to say on it.
Yeah, a lot of talent at Ipswich Town, isn't there? And we'll, of course, be talking about them over the coming week. Justin, we'll have a quick break, shall we? After that, we'll talk about our picks for Young Player of the Season, first manager to be sacked, and as well, biggest overachiever and biggest underachiever. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. May I briefly take this opportunity to point everyone in the direction of the latest video on the Second Tier YouTube channel. I've had a deep look at Birmingham City, and will they win back-to-back promotions this coming season? You can find out how capable I think they are in that. We'll obviously have more of a chat about that over the coming week, Justin, in our league table predictions. But just as a little teaser for the listener, are you becoming a believer? Because I think it's fair to say you were a little bit sceptical earlier in the summer.
Maybe sceptical is not the right word. I'm just a little bit hesitant to aboard the bandwagon or the train, if you like.
No, I think the bandwagon was definitely more applicable there. I don't know where trains come from.
Who knows? I'll say this: if they do achieve back-to-back promotions, because it's so rare, would you be willing to have a little wager, right?
Justin, we have wages all the time around this time of year, and you never pay them. So
this isn't a financial one. Would you get a haircut like a Peaky Blinder if they achieve it?
I mean, I've tried it before. I haven't got the hairline for it. That's just what it is now. But we'll have a think about it over the coming week, Justin. We've got a lot of chat about Birmingham and plenty of other teams before we have any decision there. But maybe we'll have a wager on a few teams, including Birmingham. Who blooming knows? And let's get back onto our predictions, shall we, for the coming season? And we'll do Young Player of the Season now. I've got just one stat for you on this, Justin, and it may instantly fly in the face of your pick. Only one of the last 8 winners of Young Player of the Season wasn't a teenager by the time they picked up the award. So if you want to win this, you need to be a teenager, ideally. And I saw that stat. Made it a bit tricky getting a prediction for this because the 4 teenagers who played the most minutes in the Championship last season aren't in the league anymore, including, obviously, Joe Bellingham and Chris Rigg. So with that being said, Justin, who have you gone for as Young Player of the Season for next season?
I've gone with Sidney Peck at Sheffield United. You're a big fan of the Pecker, aren't you?
Not calling him the Pecker, but otherwise, yes.
Okay, fair enough. So am I. He's he took not as much as you, but he certainly took my fancy last year. But his ability to dictate plays is something that really impresses me for someone who's such a young player. I think working under Ruben Tellers will really, really help him because of Ruben Tellers' ability to really get young players delivering and performing way above their level and maturity. So that's one of the reasons why I fancy Peck to excel. Peck himself did well last season alongside Vinny Souza. So it'll be interesting to see how he settles now with what I presume to be Gus Hamer alongside him. Made 45 appearances last season, started 35, so he really was a key cog for the Blades under Chris Wilder, who, by the way, traditionally opts for experience. So Peck really must have left an impression on Chris Wilder to be so trusted. Similarly with Ali Arblaster, actually. He won't dominate goals or assists, but his work progressing the ball, getting the ball into advanced positions, being a shield for the back line, that sort of work is very important to a team. And with the absence of Vinny Souza, there'll be an element of where Sidney Peck's going to need to step up.
Yeah, as you say, I'm a big fan of the Pecker. I just wonder if, in terms of this award, he might be too old because at the grand old age of 21, I think, he's 20 at the moment, but he's going to be turning 21 in a couple of months' time, I think. I think that might make him too old because, as I say, Justin, the oldest player from the last 8 winners was 20, and that was Brennan Johnson at the grand old age of 20. So, yeah, as I say, I just wonder if 21's too old for this award, maybe.
Raheem Sterling was still winning the PFA Young Player of the Year, wasn't he, at the age of 29? So it just felt like he was always linked. He was always in the running, wasn't he? Similarly with Harry Kane. But maybe he is too old. 21, you only just started to be allowed to drink in nights out in the US. So are you really that old?
God's
No,
sake.
maybe not.
I'm sure there are definitely more applicable things you could have done for 21, yeah, but that's also fine as well. But yeah, I get City Peck, as I say, he's a fantastic player, and there aren't a huge amount of options really going in the Championship. I've gone with someone who's probably the most obvious pick, and I'm struggling to find any other shouts, so I'm going to go with him. It's Southampton's Tyler Dibbling. Now, as I say, probably an obvious shout because he was one of the rare positives to come out of an absolutely appalling season for Saints. They were unbelievably shite, and he was so often one of the only ones who looked capable of playing at that level, and that's why he's been linked with loads of big clubs, because he's got a big future ahead of him. And I think we all recognise that, but it turns out Southampton do too. And so they've been saying, yeah, you can have him if you're willing to cough up a huge amount of money for him. And so far, no one has seemed willing enough to meet those demands yet. So it's looking increasingly likely that he may actually stay. And if he does, he should be superb in the Championship, particularly under Will Still, who's got a good record of developing young players. But yeah, still only 19 now. So if he stays, you'd have to imagine he'd be the red hot favourite for this award if anyone was offering odds on it as well.
Oh, and a player's rated at £100 million, then surely
Exactly.
they're going to excel. Of course, as Southampton slapping that very, very big price tag on him, which actually I think was a massive stroke because I think it's detracted a lot of attention from potential suitors. We all laugh about it, but I've not seen any strong rumours of Dibbling leaving this summer, which potentially in different circumstances where they may have slapped a £50 million price tag on him might have been different. I think much depends on how the squad is going to shape up under Will Still. I was mentioning with top goal scorer, the likes of Adam Armstrong and Ben Brereton being able to play on flanks. Tyler Dibbling will certainly be in that category, but he's one of the most exciting prospects in the country right now, owing much to his impact last year in the Premier League. So you can't really take that from him. He wears he wears his socks really low as well, which tells you that he's a good player.
Yeah, baller. Like, that's always a good sign. Like Jack Grealish when he was here in the Championship. We may be seeing kind of a Jack Grealish-esque kind of scenario really with him, where he's clearly one of the most talented young players in the country, but the club who have got him just want to keep hold of him, and can't blame them for doing that because he's very bloody good. So yeah, maybe he'll, at this level, he'll probably get a lot more game time than he would if he did move to a big Premier League club. And maybe it'll be the best thing for his career in retrospect. So, I'm looking forward to seeing him play, assuming that he does stay at Southampton this coming season. Let's move on, Justin, to our next category. It's first manager to leave or be sacked. I'll start off by saying I'm glad Danny Rulle's finally gone at Sheffield Wednesday, because otherwise this whole section would have been entirely pointless. But his departure means the only club who was in the Championship this season and last season who hasn't changed their manager is Portsmouth, with John Mousinho. Otherwise, sackings are your bread and butter in the Championship, aren't they? Get this, Justin. Since the start of the 23-24 season, we've averaged a manager change at a club every 15 days. 15 days! That's just over a fortnight. And last season, we saw a manager go after the first game of the season when Ryan Lowe left Preston. I don't think we'll see that again here. The season before that, we saw Neil Warnock leave Huddersfield after 7 games. But it doesn't take long in the old Champo. So with that being said, Justin, who do you think will be the first to go this season?
I've gone with Sergej Jukiewicz at Hull. This is more a reflection on the owner than Jukiewicz. Don't get me wrong, I'm not convinced by Jukiewicz by any means, but he's not helped by off the field issues, which are going to they're all severely impacting how the club recruits. At the time of recording, there's still only one senior striker in Kyle Joseph. There is excitement waiting with Mohamed Balloum and Liam Miller, but they have to be nursed back after ACL injuries. You've got Charlie Hughes, Cody Drameh, Ryan Giles, who are capable at Championship level. But one thing that isn't capable at this level is Atron Charlie. He's so self-serving, it's unreal. And I feel if Hull are bottom by September, he will just pull the curtains down on Jukiewicz. Which, as I say, I don't think is particularly fair, because he's not been able to benefit from the type of recruitment that I think the squad needs. Yeah,
it's fair to say Ella Charlie's he's a pretty volatile owner when it comes to sackings, so this wouldn't surprise me at all. What stopped me with going with him is he's a new manager, so he would have to do disastrously bad to be sacked, the first manager to be sacked in the division. And I also look at Tim Volter last season, Hull's manager at the start of the season. It took them until the end of November to sack him. So Jurkovic would have to do incredibly bad to be the first to go this season, I would say, Justin.
What I will add to that is I think the bruising and scarring from last year, from being so late with the decision making with Tim Volter, might play into the thinking here with Jurkovic, because if it isn't working, then Ilichali might be prompted to pull the trigger earlier than he might have done before. That being said, it's worth pointing out Tim Volter, I think, he had the same problems last summer, whereby the club did not recruit extensively as it needed to, or replace players as extensively as they needed to, and they were playing catch up for a very long time. And he was falling out with players, didn't enjoy playing under him. I'm not saying that's going to be the same under Jurkovic, but when your owner is the centre of attention at a football club, it's not very good. It's not very good. And they strike me a bit like, Hull City, like they were last season, which, again, is not a good example.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's all true, Justin. Absolutely fair comments. I can't disagree with you much on that. I will point out Hull have done remarkably well in pre-season. They've won 5 in a row, including beating Sunderland on Tuesday. So who knows? Maybe Jurkovic is the Messiah this whole time. We'll wait and see, won't we? My first manager to be sacked this season is Paul Heckingbottom of Preston North End. And the simple reason for that is I believe he's the only manager starting this season under pressure, I think. I can't think of anyone else, because Preston were shocking at the end of last season. Just one win in their final 15 games. They went from being mid-table to nearly getting relegated. It was nearly your textbook example of a team sleepwalking into relegation. And they seriously got away with murder by staying up. If the season were 1 or 2 games longer, they may very well have gone down. So Heckingbottom's starting the season on the back foot, in my eyes. I don't think Preston fans have really taken to him because he hasn't done much in his time there so far. So I think he's definitely the favourite in my mind, put it that way.
Yeah, I think Preston is typically a club that sticks rather than twists, if you like.
Did lose the manager after 1 game last season.
That was mutual consent, wasn't it? Yeah, Ryan Lowe went into the boardroom and said, "I don't fancy this anymore." They're like, "Yeah, okay, fine." But if a poor start is sack worthy at Preston, I'd argue that it's squad related rather than Heckingbottom. That's the thing that I'd be concerned with. I'm not a huge Paul Heckingbottom apologist, but I think Preston would be in a position where they struggle to attract a better manager than Heckingbottom. I think that's why Spud Bros is a perfect sponsor for Preston, because I think Spud Bros have made a very basic meal interesting, haven't they, in jacket potatoes. The club hierarchy at Preston need to do that with the club, because they're still just a jacket potato with a salad and a bit of butter. It's fine, but it's not exciting. It's not interesting, is it? So, recruitment team, be like Spud Bros. That's my advice.
I'm trying to come up with potato-based puns now, but the only thing I could come up with is Preston are going to mash up Paul Heckingbottom's contract if things don't go very well at the start. It's surprisingly hard coming up with potato-based puns.
Got to build from the ground up, haven't they?
Is that a potato-based pun?
Well, potatoes grow in the ground, so why not?
That is so vague. It's unbelievable. Let's move on, ladies and gents, to the next category. It's biggest overachiever. I guess last season's biggest overachiever was Sunderland, considering they got promoted. Before that, probably Ipswich. So we've had some bloody good overachievers in recent years. Justin, who have you gone with as the biggest overachiever in the Championship this coming year?
I've gone with Charlton Athletic. I think mostly down to them having a very good pre-season in terms of their recruitment, but also Nathan Jones. So I fancy them to exceed pre-season expectations of relegation or just missing out on relegation. For them to essentially finish comfortably above the bottom 3. I'm talking on the beach in late April, kind of comfortable, where I do think that in the modern game in the Championship is an overachievement, a massive overachievement. You only got to look at the gap between the Championship and League One. That's growing. You look at the resources that Wrexham and Birmingham have got compared to Charlton, who Charlton came up with them, massive. And also look at how much of a struggle it was for Portsmouth, Oxford and Derby last season, who up until sort of 2 games to go were all still within a shout of being relegated. I think it's also worth factoring in how far behind they are compared to everybody else. They're a month behind other teams because of the playoffs. Obviously, they get promoted via the playoff final. And like it or not, that severely impacts clubs, impacts recruitment, impacts squad planning, everything. And then you compare the resource Charlton will have compared to the rest of the Championship. Very important context to bring into it.
Yeah, well, I've been very impressed by Charlton's business this summer. I think they've been very shrewd and got a lovely mix of experience and sort of unexposed talent for the level. And the two which stand out the most for me so far are Thomas Kaminski in goal, who I think is just a bargain at £1 million, and Rob Apter from Blackpool, young winger, who I really think could be one of the revelations of the season. But a lot of the players they already have are more than ready to step up at this level. Connor Coventry in particular is someone I look at who's a very, very good holding mid. So yeah, I'm liking the look of Charlton. In terms of them staying up, I've got far bigger concerns about loads of other teams than Charlton. So yeah, I think they'll do a lot better than most probably expect. Of course, they've made the signing this week, just of Charlie Kelman from Queen's Park Rangers, which has caused a bit of a stir online. Some saying it's a great signing, some saying they've massively overpaid. I don't know if you've got a quick take on that.
I would just throw in the caution of Jack Marriott, who was great in League One at Peterborough, signed for Derby and was very average. Charlie Kelman is a bit of a brute and a bit of a powerful finisher, which isn't necessarily transferable in the Championship. You've got to have a bit more finesse. That's from what I've seen of him, which is limited. But it's a lot of money to pay for a striker. Charlton's recruitment has been largely pretty good this summer. So based on that, very vague sort of assessment, you might say it's a good signing, but ultimately, don't know.
Who knows? Let's go to my pick for Dark Horse, and it's the team Charlie Kelman's just gone from. I've been saying it all summer, but I'm finally nailing my colours to the mast. QPR are my dark horses this season because I've been so impressed with the business they've done, and I think their squad is looking very tasty. They've got one of the best right-backs in the league in Jimmy Dunn. They have so many centre-back options, including Amadou Mbenge, who they've signed from Reading, who was excellent for them. At left-back, it looks like they're giving a chance to young Ziad Lekirch, who got rave reviews on loan at Dundee last season. In midfield, they've got Jonathan Varane, Nicholas Madsen and Sam Field. Varane I rate very highly. I think he's one of the best ball winners in the division. Then you've got the attacking three. That attacking three of Kwame Poku, Elias Chair and Karamoko Dembele. One of the most thrilling attacking trios in the division. Poku was sensational at Peterborough and could very well end up being signing of the summer for the entire division this season. And then finally up front, I said last week I was a bit concerned about that. So it was a nice surprise to see QPR sign Roman Burrell from Burton at the weekend, because I was considering backing him to be top goal scorer in League One this coming season. Is he good enough for the Championship? That's another question, admittedly, but he scored a lot of goals in League One for a struggling Burton team, and the numbers show he's a very good finisher. So I'm all aboard that one as well. And then finally, there's the manager, Julian Stéphan, who massively overachieved at Rennes and Strasbourg over in France. Could end up being a massive coup for QPR getting him in. So I've said it for many weeks now, QPR ticking a lot of boxes for me. QPR are definitely my pick for dark horse, biggest overachievers, whatever you want to call it. Go on, Justin, give us a nay for QPR.
Do you want a physical nay, or do you want me to say, or do you want me to disagree with you? Like,
no, I want a physical nay, please.
Nay. There we go.
Go on, you could put more into it than that.
I feel like I was just about to say what credibility this podcast has. I don't want to diminish it by naying, but you've done that.
We're naying for QPR. Give me a big old nay if you agree with me. QPR are going to be an overachiever this season.
I'm not doing it.
Do it.
Absolutely. Nay. No.
Coward. Do you think QPR are going to be an overachiever this season?
I think they'll be an achiever. I think mid-table. I'd have them down as mid-table. I really would. I think the only thing that pulls me back a little bit is nay.
That's a sad nay.
I've seen so many videos of horses this week to just fill time here. I've seen a video of a horse playing keyboard, which would have been perfect for
I saw that. It's brilliant, isn't it?
That would be perfect for your dark horse treatment of this QPR team. But anyway, I just think they'll finish mid-table. I think mid-table. I think squad depth. Just to run it short, squad depth is my thing holding me back. Like, if Elias Chair gets injured or is not performing, who steps in? Rafter youngsters came from, played under Cifuentes last season, but you're putting a lot on them to come in and step up. Karameka Dembele's injury record last season, Kwame Poko's injury record last season. There's just bits and bobs there that would pull me back from making them a bona fide dark horse overachiever for the push for the playoffs, if you like. But I do fancy him to have a good season.
You're forgetting Paul Smith. The squad depth in certain areas I completely get, but you could say that about a lot of teams in the division.
Yeah.
I think QPR, in terms of the personnel they've got, I'm very, very excited for this season, especially with the manager. And all I'm going to say is 8-1 to finish in the top 6. Nay. Let's go to biggest underachiever this season, Justin. Last season, we saw probably the biggest underachievement ever in the Championship. We don't need to stick around and talk about that any further. Who have you gone with for the biggest underachiever in the league this coming season?
Lovely segue, because there's a reason why I've picked these as my underachiever. It's the man who took last season's underachiever down, Middlesbrough, who of course is managed by Rob Edwards. This comes down to my Rob Edwards scepticism, but also the shape up and balance of Middlesbrough's squad. Rob Edwards first, 2 promotions on his CV, fair play, well done. 2 relegations as well, so we're balanced out. There's also a question of, is Rob Edwards a better coach than Michael Carrick? My personal opinion would say no. So there might be a lot depending on AD Vivesh. And it's not particularly fair to put a lot down on your assistant head coach. I go to the squad as well, and it's I would say it's interestingly balanced, but also look at the quality of the squad as well. Is it good enough for a team chasing promotion? It's last couple of years it's not been the case. Hayden Hackney's on the verge of leaving at the time of recording. There's no Ben Doak. Emmanuel Atelaf hasn't been replaced goal-wise. I do like Tommy Conway, but is he consistent enough? Can Riley McGree stave off injuries? Because I do think a lot of the issues Middlesbrough had last season was Riley McGree getting injured. Will Rob Edwards be as tactically consistent as we've seen at Forest Green and Watford and Luton? I hope not, because this squad is not built to play that way, i.e. heavy focus on wing-backs. I don't like what has been stirred here. I really don't.
Yeah, well, Middlesbrough, of course, a club we often have in or around the top 6 when we make our predictions, haven't we? And this is probably the first year where that's not going to be the case. Spoiler alert. But they've been on a steady decline over the last few seasons, haven't they? And looking at this season, they haven't exactly grabbed the headlines when it comes to the transfer window. You've mentioned a lot of the reasons there. They didn't sign anyone until last week when they finally got an Alfie Jones from Hull, but potentially losing Hayden Hackney, as you say. Rav van den Berg's another one who is potentially going out the door. All the players they had on loan last season, which they had a fair few of, including Ben Doak. I don't have a particularly strong feeling at the moment on Rob Edwards, because we just don't know how he's going to do after what was obviously a abysmal campaign by his standards. But purely looking at the squad, it's very likely that they're going to end the transfer window weaker than they went into it, Justin, which is never a good sign, really, is it?
Well, exactly. That's the thing that I'm really worried about. And I think Kieran Scott, the head of recruitment, is it's worth pointing out that he's very good at recruiting individuals, but we've not seen a good squad get put together. You compare that of Luton that was put together under Nathan Jones. That's the best example I can give. They're very different. You don't necessarily buy the best player. You buy the best player to fit the squad. And we've seen a lot of good players come in at Middlesbrough and just not really excel, and not really excel as a group, I should say, because individuals do very well. But that's it. Latte Laff scored a lot of goals, got a big move to the MLS, weirdly. Hayden Hackney is an individual that's really, really blossomed under Michael Carrick, but he's on the verge of leaving. And then we're just in this constant state of buy, sell. That really, are the foundations that strong at Middlesbrough? You'd argue at this point, no. And that's a worry.
Yeah, well, Middlesbrough fans always tell us that they have got a lot of money back in terms of players sold over the years, haven't they?
That's good.
But does it really matter if you're not going to have any success to show for it? Because Middlesbrough have spent a lot of money and only had, one top 6 finish in the past 6 or 7 seasons now. It's not a very good record at all. So, yeah, it doesn't seem to be anything's changing at Middlesbrough, and they just, as I say, seem to be on a steady decline at the moment. When it comes to my biggest underachiever, if I'm telling the truth, I didn't have a strong fancy when it came to this, because there wasn't anyone who I strongly feel like is destined to finish way lower than most expect. So what I did was I looked at my current league table predictions and compared it to what the bookies were saying. And this was the standout one because there are 9 teams at shorter odds than this team to be relegated this coming season, which is strange considering they only stayed up on the final day back in May. It's Stoke City. A club who have been circling the drain in the Championship for many seasons now, seem to be getting closer and closer to it. And I don't see why that's going to change this coming season. Firstly, we said last season that if it wasn't for Victor Johansson in goal, they probably would have gone down. And in terms of players, they seem even weaker now. They've lost their best player in Walterberger. We had to see if they're going to replace him. I bloody hope they are. They were the second lowest scorers in the league last season. I'm not sure the new strikers are going to improve that. Divin Mabama, who's only played 20 games at senior level in his entire career on loan from Man City. And then there's Robert Bozanek, who scored 5 goals last season for the side who finished bottom of the Portuguese league. You've got the manager, Mark Robbins, who has more question marks over him than ever before. Underlying data-wise, Stoke actually looked worse than when he came in. And then you've got the sporting director in John Walters, who's already made plenty of questionable decisions despite only being in the job for 15 months. There's a lot of problems at Stoke, and while I think the signings of Ashley Phillips, Maxim Talavirov and Sorba Thomas are good, they need an awful lot more than that, and I'm not sure it's forthcoming. So yeah, I think they are in massive danger once again of going down.
I don't understand how a team who perennially underachieves can therefore be considered an underachiever. So I'm now very interested to know how far down you have them in your table.
No, I was the same as you, Justin. I don't really think it is that much of an underachievement because they're probably, in my mind, going to finish in a very similar position to where they were last season, probably slightly lower, in my mind anyway. But I just literally compared it to the bookies because no one else really stood out to me as far as underachievers go.
Yeah, it's fair. It's really hard to get behind Stoke. I've been burned so many times. I'm going back to an old flame time and time again, and they're pulling me in, and they ultimately break my heart all over again. I won't lie, I flirted with Stoke a little bit this summer. I do like what is coming together this summer. You know, I'm really excited about the back five. I'm getting excited about defence, for God's sake. Victor Johansson, Sorba Thomas at right wing back, what I presume will be a back five. Sorba Thomas at right wing back, Ben Wilmot, Ashley Phillips, Maxim Talavirov, and Aaron Cresswell. I think he's actually very tidy. Lots of crosses for some physical boys in Sam Gallagher and Robert Bozanek. He's running it back. Tony Pulis days are back, and I'm here for it. That being said, can't get carried away with Stoke. Can't.
No, you can't. You simply can't. And Justin says he's been flirting a little bit. He's been flirting a hell of a lot with the idea of Stoke being a lot higher, but it says a lot that even he's, holding back on them. I think you'll find Sorba Thomas is looking more likely to play on the left wing based off pre-season. So how the team is actually setting up, I just don't know. But there'll be Stoke fans who are outraged by this shout, and I'm sure there will be because that's always the case. But honestly, what can you look at from the stuff they've done over the summer and say this season's going to be any different to what we've seen in the past? Because I thought you were going to come along, Justin, and say you've got faith in Mark Robbins turning things around. But, we've sat here around this time every year and said the same thing about Steven Schumacher or Alex Neil, Narcis Palach. Okay, maybe not the last one, but, Stoke, they chew up managers, spit them out. And I don't think Mark Robbins will change that, especially when there's more questions about him as a manager than there ever has been.
I think this is the case. If Mark Robbins fails, then there's zero hope for Stoke because the amount of talented managers we've seen come in in Staffordshire and just fail. Nathan Jones has had success elsewhere. Gary Rowett has had success elsewhere. Steven Schumacher, okay, maybe hard to bring him into it. Alex Neil has had success elsewhere. Yeah, these managers I'm saying other than Schumacher have all guided a team in and around the playoffs in the Championship that hasn't been Stoke. Post-Stoke, it's bonkers, isn't it? Alex Neil with Millwall, Gary Rowett with Millwall, and of course Nathan Jones with Luton. It's just Stoke, that's the problem. The problems are upstairs, we know this. So you can't keep resetting. You can't keep starting again. As I say, if Mark Robbins doesn't deliver, I don't know who will. Nobody.
Justin, we've got one final prediction, and it's just generic, bold prediction. So what have you gone for as your bold prediction for the Championship this coming season?
I've got two. One's less bold, but I'll go with the one that is the boldest. I think we see multiple point deductions this season for various reasons.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty grim one.
Yeah, sorry, it's sad. I should have caveated that. Not a nice one. There's the threat of historic FFP problems, current FFP problems, potential, and what I think is potential administrations. I'm speaking very generically because I don't want to just sit here and be like, your club's under this threat, your club's under this threat. It's just what I see as a bit of a prediction. As I say, I won't say who. You can probably work out who I think the 3 clubs are most in turmoil this season, behind the scenes.
Okay. Yeah.
Probably one particular owner doing his best to gaslight an entire fan base. So we'll leave it there. So I think we'll see multiple point deductions this season.
Okay. As I say, a bit of a grim one, but when you said the 3 clubs, I was like, okay, yeah, but I can figure out exactly who you're thinking of there. What was your other prediction?
I think Chancery lasts the season at Sheffield Wednesday. Another
That's
grim
another
one.
grim one, for God's sake.
I'm sorry. It's sad. Very sad, but maybe it reflects my mindset this week. Maybe I need to go outside a little bit more. It's been raining all week, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, as time goes on, it's looking more and more likely to be the case, isn't it? So, yeah, 2 very grim predictions there from Justin Peach.
Which one from me?
But I think both have got a remote chance of happening. My bold prediction is I've gone with Ryan Reynolds and Tom Brady to kiss this season because the sexual tension between them is just killing me. I just get it over and done with, lads, because if you don't do it soon, then you're just letting us all down, I think.
There'll be cameras on them as well, so we'll definitely see it. Yeah,
we'll be there watching it front and centre, Justin. We'll be leading everyone else in their gazes at those 2 beautiful men snogging in front of the nation.
That's got nothing. It's hard to formulate something semi-serious after what we've been talking about all day. But it's a good prediction. Why not? Are there odds on it? Have you found odds on it?
Unfortunately not. Maybe we'll be able to source some before the season starts. But yeah, maybe it's definitely going to happen in my eyes because
how do we treat that when it eventually happens? What's the sort of commentary we're going for? We're going all out. Like finally they did it.
I think we just kiss ourselves. Anyway, ladies and gents, this has been the prediction show here on the Second Tier podcast, where we'll be making some big old predictions ahead of the new season, but we're not done yet because we've got a lot more predictions to make in the coming week. That's because, ladies and gents, it's our league table predictions coming up. On Sunday, it's our bottom 8. On Tuesday, it's our middle 8. And then on Thursday, it is our top 8. All our predictions, the most detailed preview of each team you'll get across anywhere this coming season from 2 nerds who watch more championship football than anyone else. Justin, I'm so excited, and the listeners should be very excited as well.
It's 3 hours talking about 24 teams. Yeah. I'm excited to point. I'm lost for words. I'm very excited making these predictions. I think I've been the most excited about them because I think your top 6 and your bottom 3s are much simpler than what happens in between it. And we were discussing the other day, it's a clusterfuck. That's how we described it.
Yeah, the middle of the table is very, very difficult to try and organise. But I'm the same as you, kind of. I had my bottom 5, which I've had settled on for quite some time. And then I've had a top 3, which I've been settled on for quite some time. Not a top 6. I don't think there's as much between 4th and 19th as there usually is in a season, but I think there is this time around. But there we go, ladies and gents. That's what you got to look forward to this coming week. This is the only place you need to be ahead of the new championship season. So stick with us and welcome along for the ride. But this has been the Second Tier podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.